Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. Wanted to take a minute real quick here to introduce the panel of speakers. I'm Kevin O'Neill with Steel Solutions, and I'll be your leadoff hitter tonight. Today, we have Greg Doppler from Cornerstone and Hugh Schlegel from Wildeck as well. Today, obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about storage platforms, mezzanines, equipment platforms, different terms that are used, but basically structures that support equipment and product. The three of us are active members in what's called the SMA, which is the Storage Equipment Manufacturers Association, which is part of MHI. What MHI does is they have a number of industry groups that work together for the greater good of the industry. This organization's been around since 1974, and really what we're trying to do is advance the standards, quality, safety, and general fitness for intended use of industrial storage equipment. In other words, we're just trying to make our industry better, more recognized in the building codes, make it a safer decision for end users when they're deciding on applications, things like that, making sure things are done the right way. And obviously there are requirements to be members. Obviously we have to pay some dues and things like that. But most importantly, what we need to do is attend meetings and participate in the activities that the group agrees are the things to help us grow a more vibrant business and industry for all of us to share in. And it's not a company-specific thing, it's really working for the greater good of the industry. What I'm going to cover first is some of the applications that you see. For some of the end users out there, what we're hoping to do is maybe catch an idea for you, be informational on something you could use to create some additional space in your facility, in your building, in your business. So obviously one of the common uses is in retail stores, back rooms, creating additional storage space. Obviously one of the things that happens in retail stores is they need to pay for the square footage that they have, not only in the buildings they have, but in parking lots and so on and so forth. So having back rooms that can use multiple levels to store is actually it gives them a lot of cost advantages other than just the simple lease rate and other things like that. Again, similar thing, who hasn't been to an automotive dealership? There's many different parts rooms and different applications. One of the things that the freestanding structures that our companies provide we'll do a little bit differently is it gives them flexibility for different designs. As you can see, the tires are down below, smaller parts up top. However, utilizing the various products done by the SMA companies, that gives them a lot of flexibility in their design to come up with the most creative use of all the space. Obviously, what most people think of when they think of mezzanines or platforms is warehouse applications where you're just creating additional storage space. Obviously, the benefits there are you don't have to lease another building. The same people, same employees can work both levels. You can save money on heating and lighting, so on, so forth, things like that. That's kind of the classic storage mezzanine that most people think of is in a warehouse application like that. Distribution centers is another big use for these types of products. When you get into the distribution centers, obviously it's supporting a lot of conveyor and so on and so forth. If that conveyor was all on the ground, the forklifts wouldn't be able to maneuver as they need to through the building as well. So coming up with a system, working with the conveyor systems integrators to develop a system that will allow them to maximize the overhead space is a critical part of what we do. And again, I should have probably mentioned earlier, if you have any questions, we will have some time at the end for Q&A, absolutely. And we'll touch base on that as we go forward. But if you have anything, please keep that till the end. Obviously, manufacturing is another application where some heavier duty uses for work platforms can be used. And again, the same kind of concept. You can have robots working underneath, equipment that feed those robots up above. You can have various pieces of equipment that need to feed other pieces of equipment or just duplicating the same process. Light duty manufacturing, heavy duty manufacturing, platforms can certainly be a part of any and each of those. Again, another manufacturing shot here. Again, what you might see similarly in some of the heavier duty manufacturing is some heavy pieces of equipment. What we would need to know as the designers is the weights of that equipment, what it's being used for, the dynamic loading and things like that. Working with the companies that are the SMA members, that type of thing, that are reputable companies. They'll ask those questions and help you design the right system for your solution. Again, conveyor sortation support. The distribution centers are run very efficiently, very automated sometimes, and getting that equipment up in the air and having the right design mechanism for that is really important. One of the things you'll notice in the pictures as you go through is there's different applications, there's different decking solutions, there's different components used to make it. What we're going to do today is I'm touching on some of the applications. Greg will cover some of the decking options and so on and so forth, some of the pluses and minuses of those, and then Hugh's going to talk about some of the specific components that make up the applications and things like that to inform, give you a little bit of information. Obviously, we know in 30 minutes we're not going to have you be experts at this point in time, but there's plenty of time to visit those out in the show that are displaying as well to learn more if you have questions as well. Again, Q&A is a very common use in many applications where they need to be checking packages, consolidating packages, doing the Q&A work. Getting that process up in the air creates the additional floor space up below. One of the keys, obviously, to using a work platform is it doubles the space without having to knock down walls and without having to do a lot of the things that are involved. That goes without saying, but really you can see there's a lot of opportunity for different stations down below and things while still using the same square footage up above. We really try to look at it as using the full cubic space that you own as opposed to just the square footage. Most people, if you ask them how many square feet is your building or how big is your building, they'll tell you it's 250,000 square feet or 25,000 square feet. Almost no one will know the answer to how much cubic space that is. So that's our goal, is to help people think about looking up to use all that additional space. Paint line platform, again, in the manufacturing, in the manufacturing environment, in the equipment environment as they're doing processes, it makes a lot of sense to get some of the automated processes up off the ground and allow the heavier equipment to work down below. Food applications are, again, another very common thing where it's feeding hoppers and things like that to fill up. As you can see, there's a hopper being supported there, supporting that equipment with some limited maintenance access, and or sometimes there's applications where the end users are actually filling hoppers and things like that above. Coffee roasters, I've seen them fill the coffee beans up top and so on and so forth. Different applications like that. Another very common use is partnering with some of the modular office companies out there in the industry that can help you create more office space, either above, below, or both, as in this picture. So again, one of the benefits that you'll see oftentimes with this type of an application is the supervisor can get their office up in the air a little bit to see the grouping, see the people working in their area. Just seeing him at his desk from afar, they can't tell if he's looking out watching them or doing paperwork or whatever else. But again, it just creates additional space where there wasn't space originally. And again, here's an example of a manufacturing space that, is it okay to say the name? Dell Computer, using to actually manufacture their components. Most people would think that it needs to be done on the ground, but actually with the static dissipating decking and the way we're doing things these days, it's a very common application to move that light duty manufacturing up onto a platform. Cold storage is another application. I had someone stop by my booth today who was looking into this application where they wanted to have refrigerated storage above and freezer storage below. Is that a possibility, was the question. Absolutely is the answer. Very, very commonly used application is to, again, just use the cube. So that just covers some of the applications that we did. I did it quick because I wanted to save some time for opportunities at the end. The key is, if you think about using the space when it comes to applications, if you think about using the full space that you have, the full height of your building, there will be many applications that are out there that we didn't even touch on because we just did a quick summary here. With that being the case, I'll turn it over to Greg to cover the decking and flooring area of our presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming today. A part of this whole conversation is, what do we do about the decking and flooring that goes on these structures? There's a few components to this elevated platform. You know, the first thing we have to know is, what kind of footings do we have? How much load is there going to be? That's going to dictate what kind of support we need for the footings, right? Second thing is we got to have column and joist steel. What's the allowable deflection? Again, what's the uniform loads on this floor? What are the point loads, the rolling point loads going to be on this flooring system? Next, you'll have a corrugated decking, either to catch concrete or a sort of a substructure here. Finally, you have a decking surface, stairs, and handrail. These are the basic building blocks of your elevated platform. You can do a couple different things with those, and we're going to talk about some of those. There's 2 or 3 different basic types of flooring structures that you can incorporate. Let me go back a second. The first one is concrete. Okay, you see these everywhere, and there's some pluses and minuses with each of these types of structures that I'm going to talk to you about. You have bar grating, it's an obvious possibility. Then there's moisture-resistant engineering wood composites, and we'll talk a little bit about each of these items and how they work and how they don't work for you. With concrete, there's some obvious advantages. Concrete is tough, it's strong, it's fire resistant, it's poured in place, it's a paintable, durable surface. One of the disadvantages of using concrete has to do with the weight, the dead weight of the structure, and then what happens when you have some rolling loads, not just a dead uniform load, but rolling loads. This was an application we saw in Boston where a company had used a mezzanine, decided to put equipment back on there and rolling loads, and had some issues. They actually punched through this floor in 3 different places. They cracked the floor quite badly. If you get too much flexure in a concrete floor, you can end up with a pile of gravel. And in fact, these guys had a major problem with that. So it's important to understand as an end user what you want to do. And as a designer or somebody in our industry, we need this information so that you can tell us how you're going to use the floor so you don't end up with something like this. Concrete is perfectly fine in a number of applications, but we need to understand not only what you're doing today, but what you're planning to do in the future so we avoid things like this, right? Bar grade is a wonderful product that goes up easily. It installs pretty quickly. It can be put in less expensively than a concrete and way less. There are some disadvantages. You're looking here at a 1 inch by 1 1/8 19W4, which is a very common size for bar grade. There can be some disadvantages with bar grade. With wheel loads on there, you can either punch through these wheels or punch through the bars, or you can deform the bars if the loads are too heavy. There's a product called Press Lock that's quite helpful if you have wheel loads and you have lighter wheel loads to keep the wheels from punching through and from causing problems on that grating. Now, there's some laminated panels that have been out there. There's some advantages to these. This was different than plywood. It's a laminate with a polyethylene. Folks have used this before. It was a big improvement over the traditional plywood that folks used. There can be some disadvantages when you have laminates, and you have heavy rolling loads. Laminates can delaminate. So if you don't want your job to look like some of this, you need to understand up front how much traffic is there, what are the nature of these loads, so you know what might end up happening or not. So there's other MR engineered wood products. There's some advantages to these. If there's not a laminate to them, then they won't delaminate. You have different grades for different strengths and different loads that you'll have. You can have some disadvantages, as you see here. There's a little scratch on that floor right in there. Some of these coatings on here can scratch if you've got big, heavy loads that are being dragged across there. So again, pluses and minuses with each of these things. But if you use the proper flooring system, you can get good versatility, you get great long-term performance, you'll be happy with your floor. So there's a great way to optimize that in the SMA. There's professionals who can help you make those good decisions, and I'm just encouraging you to go ahead and get in touch with those guys, get them involved, and help them help you. I'll turn it over to Hugh right now.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about on work platforms, equipment platforms, or mezzanines systems, some of the design features and accessories when you're thinking about moving your material to the different levels. Mezzanine systems, as Kevin was talking about, optimize your existing overhead space, and they can create space for in-plant offices, storage, or manufacturing, and they cost less than new construction. It's easier, of course, to expand up than to put on an extension to your building and expand out. Here's an example of a single-level mezzanine. It can be used in manufacturing for all different types of applications. Again, finding more space, a typical stair structure to move up to that upper level. or it could be a multi-level mezzanine. And this one here is showing a conveyor structure on the second level. I'm not sure what's up on the third level, but it's just an example of the multi-level applications that you might want to consider. And for all these different applications, there are different framing options and designs to support the weight and the loads that you have at the different levels. This one here is the bolted C-section design. It's the most economical. It's for smaller mezzanines and smaller spans. Uniform live load up to 200 pounds per square foot. And it can be manufactured rather quickly. Most manufacturers have a large press brake and they can form their own C-sections and put this thing together, and you'll have it up in your facility in no time. Another one is a beam and C-section design. Again, 200 pounds per square feet. Small to medium size load capacity because you've got a beam structure in there. And then you have, for higher load capacity, a beam and beam design. And spans and loads are virtually unlimited in this design. 30-foot spans between columns is very common. And then there's also a beam and bar joist design. In this structure, one of the advantages is you have access on the bar joist there to have your mechanicals, your lighting, your plumbing, whatever, right through those joists on one side. Uniform live loads up to 300 pounds per square foot because it's got the beam structure, very strong design. And the spans are unlimited between columns. And the final one here I'm showing today is a truss girder and bar joist. And the main difference here is that you can run mechanicals in either direction. One way or through, it's not really, you can't see it too well, but there's openings on the truss girder side. Spans, of course, are unlimited there. To access the platforms, you can have a stair anywhere you want with an intermediate platform as shown here. If you're going up to multiple levels, this could be quite a complex situation. Again, work with the manufacturer. Whatever stair access you require can be provided. There is a code once you have to get material, besides people going up the stairs, to get material up to an elevated level. There's an ANSI code 28.3 for the specification for design, manufacture, and installation of industrial steel work platforms. There's a section in there that talks about openings at the elevated level. It says any gate that provides an access opening through the guards for the purpose of loading and unloading material onto the platform shall be designed such that the elevated surfaces are protected by guards at all times. This particular example shows what they call a double drop gate. There's one opening that's open right now, and you see it's guarded with railing at the top. A fork truck can drop a pallet up on that side, and someone on the outside, other side can have a pallet jack or whatever, and have a pallet dropped in the side on the left there that's protected. And then when that's all in place, they can move and slide the outer gate over, and then it opens one side and closes the other. So it's mainly this type of a back and forth gate is used for frequent movement of material to that platform. Another very popular gate is what they call a pivot safety gate. And this one can be designed to fit right into the railing around your mezzanine, and it just swivels at the pivot point. Here the lady is moving the material into the opening, and you can imagine at the far end it's a big drop off at the edge of the mezzanine. And then when the fork truck is ready to pick it up, she just pulls that down, it swivels back, and then a fork truck can access the gate. Another one is kind of designed like a garage door with a railing. It just rolls up and down, overhead safety gate. Again, both of these gate examples comply with that ANSI standard that I was talking about, which you can find on the MHI's website. This is the double drop safety gate that I was just talking about. And another option to move materials besides a fork truck up to the elevated level is to use a vertical reciprocating conveyor, or VRCs. And this shows an example of quite a big installation of vertical material lifts. where there's a lot of activity going on the upper levels. That's a building structure, that's not a mezzanine there. And then to protect the work platforms, whether it's conveyor or whatever you have, if you're storing inventory, there's a lot of traffic in facilities, you might want to consider protecting it with some safety guardrail around the perimeter. So as I mentioned, there are different standards that you should become familiar with, and when you're looking at storage equipment, there's an ANSI M26.1 for the design and testing of steel shelving, and there's another one for metal and wood shelving, and then the one that I was showing in the slide is for the design manufacture of industrial work platforms. All of the things you should be concerned about. These are members of the SMA member companies, many who are exhibiting here today. And if there's any questions, any one of us will be happy to answer them. But these are just some of the things to consider when you're looking for a place for your material and how to move it or how to protect it. Thank you very much.